Imagine yourself being locked up in a room not more than 30 square feet. Imagine the suffocation, imagine the claustrophobic environment, imagine the cramped space, and imagine yourself in that room for not one, not two, for almost 30 years. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about that person who actually spent 27 years in one such room. Hey folks, welcome to CSKSpeaks, and I'm CSK talking to you today about an individual, an amazing, a phenomenal human being who spent 27 long years in a prison cell which is little over 27 feet. He's none other than Nelson Mandela. Many of us have heard about him, and many of us cannot even imagine ourselves being locked inside a place which is as cramped as a 27 feet room for even 5 minutes. But here's a guy who spent 27 long years. Why do I say 27 so many times? Is because I want you to understand that 27 long years is not something which we can even imagine. I'm speaking slow only with the intention I want these words to sink in. Because when I read about Nelson Mandela and his story, it did not appealed to me the first time. I did not even believe it. I said, how can anybody be locked up for 27 long years and still survive? Because we all live in an environment where we want freedom. In fact, people like you and me who have been born post our independence, it's very difficult for us to even imagine lack of freedom. But not long ago, we did live under oppression. In fact, talking of oppression, even to this very day, we cage ourselves. We live through forced oppression. Let me give you an example. All of us know that we don't have to be angry. We don't want to get frustrated. We don't want to be irritated. We want to treat people around us with love, with respect. But we oppress all of those feelings and still go about our whims and fancies. Are you getting a taste of it? So, freedom is not just about being free. Freedom is all about respecting one another's freedom. In fact, let me go back to Nelson Mandela. When I visited Robben Island, you see me wearing that Robben Island jacket. That was the place where he was held captive for 27 long years. In fact, the story goes in such a way that when he was there on the first day, the very first day of his prison term, the guards there in the prison refused to even treat him with respect. Not him. Even the people who were accompanying him, none of them were treated with respect. Remember, he was fighting apartheid. He was fighting oppression of the white man over the blacks. But he refused. He refused to accept their disrespect. He refused by a non-violent means of not touching the food which they gave him. That action of his shook the entire prison. Because he said, till you respect me, and the least I would expect you is to call me by my name, Mr. Mandela. and till you do that, I am not going to eat. He became an inspiration on the very first day he entered the prison, and from that day, things began to change in the Robben Island prison. In fact, that place has become like a divine source of energy and inspiration to many people. You can go back and see presidents of different countries, including India and US, two largest democracies, have been there, spent time in solace, in isolation, leaving behind all the bodyguards, leaving behind all their security apparatus, and they said, we want to just be there for few moments to look at how the man lived in this very place. In fact, I have had the privilege to be there to South Africa, to Johannesburg, and also to Robben Island. It's a place middle of nowhere, surrounded by the seas. It's an island, but it was completely an island of prison. But when you look at the man who spent 27 long years inside, and finally when he was let out, there's a little story which I would like to tell you, and that story is so phenomenal. It seems Nelson Mandela walked out a free man after 27 years, and he was the president of South Africa. We all know this. And when he was taking rounds and he wanted to enjoy the freedom, so he said, today I'm going to have lunch in a country square. He wanted to go and spend time in open market, have all that which he had missed sitting in the prison, and enjoy life, the sun, the wind, and the life around. So he goes to the country square, the city square rather, and then he gets there, and the president is coming, so obviously everything is decked up, there is security, there is a lot of clearances, and even public are scrutinized. So finally he goes there, and he sits there on the center table and he orders his food. Behind him, there was one man who was nervous and who was scared. He found himself in a rather awkward situation because he did not expect to be present when the president visits the city square. Who was that man? That man was the jailer. The jailer who was working at the prison, the Robben Island prison, when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. Not the entire 27 years, but at least some part of it, the jailer did take charge of that prison. And when he discovered that Mr. Mandela is here, just around him in the other table, he was scared. Because he did not know what he will react. Now he has got all the power in the world, is the president of the country, and how is he going to take action against me? And why did I even find myself or come here to the city square today? Mr. Mandela did notice the man, and then he sends a word through his guard to get him to his table. And when he came, hesitantly though, Mr. Mandela did not even have an iota of grudge, frustration, revenge, anger on his face or in his demeanor. He went about in a very friendly manner. And he said, can I have the pleasure of sharing the meal with you this afternoon? Because back then, at the prison, you never had time to even share your meal with people like us. I mean, look at the gravity of that sentence. That statement set the context for the entire rule of Nelson Mandela for the coming years. In one word, forgiveness. In one word, forgiveness. And this is no surprise to all of us that Nelson Mandela has claimed that his idol, his role model is Mahatma Gandhi. And in his book, he says this story. When Mahatma Gandhi was leading agitation against the Englishmen at South Africa as a lawyer, he called his fellow countrymen to come and peacefully protest at the city square. Back then, public gatherings were not allowed. So the Britishman who was in charge had warned these people of not assembling together and showing their protest. But Mr. Gandhi was a man who was not able to or not ready to listen to these commands and instructions. He went ahead with his plan of assembling his countrymen and protesting peacefully. Then, this British general or the person in charge, he came on a horseback. And he gave orders to his people to beat them black and blue so that they can be dispersed and peace be restored or order be restored. And in that entire commotion, the officer who was on the horseback went straight up to Mr. Gandhi to warn him to back off. And when Mr. Gandhi stood his ground, he kicked Gandhi on his chest and finally got him imprisoned. And Gandhi was there in the Johannesburg prison for almost 3 months. Now then, Gandhi comes out after the 3 months tenure in the prison and straight away walks to the English officer, the British officer, and presents to him something wrapped in a newspaper. Now the officer, he had a lot of respect for Gandhi, the way he conducted himself inside the prison for 3 months. So he takes that particular piece or parcel and opens that newspaper wrapping, and only to discover a pair of shoes. He was surprised and also puzzled as to why is Gandhi giving me a pair of shoes? And Gandhi says, you know what, in the prison cell, I had 2 people who were accompanying me, and those 2 people were cobblers. So I learned the art of stitching a shoe. Now you had kicked me on my chest, and I had the size of your shoe imprinted on my heart. So I used that size to stitch a new pair of shoes. And now that I am a free man, I wanted to start by giving you this, and then I'll walk away into my freedom. Can you imagine for a second the person who kicks you on your chest with his shoe for no fault of yours? You have the forgiveness, you have the heart to create a shoes or to stitch a shoe through your own hands and present it to him once you come out. I mean, what is that which goes on in people's mind, in minds of Gandhi or Nelson Mandela? And Mandela says, I learned my first lesson of forgiveness from that incident. He continues, if you observe closely Nelson Mandela's life, he continues that I learned my lessons of leadership from my father, and in a very simple manner. It seems Mr. Mandela was accompanying his dad to the tribal meetings. And in those tribal meetings, there were 2 simple practices. 1, all of them used to sit around in a circle. And 2, his father, who was there as a delegate or a guest or the person who used to preside over these meetings, was the last person to speak. And when Mandela asked his father as to why these 2 practices, Mandela's father said, when you sit around in a circle, it signifies that each one of us are equal. Each one of us have to be respected. Each one of us are no superior to one another. And second, when I get a chance to speak and I speak last, I get a chance to listen to everybody's opinion, that is showing respect. And 2, I get a chance to make a balanced decision after hearing both sides. So as a leader, you got to treat people around you as equals. And second, you got to listen and then give a balanced opinion without getting biased. That was his leadership lessons. Another important thing which I learned from Mandela's life is the courage to take a stand. How many of you know this? I don't know, but then the history is testimony to the fact that Mandela was very, very vocal about Fidel Castro or Muhammad Gaddafi as his close friends. We all know what kind of a dictators they were, but Mandela had no problems in accepting in public forums. In fact, in a BBC interview, he said, and I quote, he said, there can be a white cat or there can be a black cat, I don't care, as long as the cat has not forgotten to catch the mice. What does it say? It says, we respect people who respect us. We treat them good when they treat us and our movement good. That's what Mandela said. This also goes to show that we all have to take the stand, and we have to take the courage to take the stand. So when you go back to that prison cell, when this man was captive for 27 long years, he refined himself in those 27 long years. He did not resign to fate and say, what has happened to my life? I deserve freedom and I am captured here. He did not get negative about people who captured him. In fact, he did not even punish any of them who actually imprisoned him once he was out and he became the president. He had all the power in the world. And he said, they were only doing their job at the instructions of people who did not know what they were doing. So I can't get angry at the jailers or the prisoners or people who were inside there who were against me. So why am I bringing this Nelson Mandela story all of a sudden this morning? Is when we travel. Today we see a lot of people ready to travel in the post-COVID world. I will say post-COVID because majority of us think that COVID is already behind us. And when we are busy preparing to travel across the world, we got to remember that when we travel, don't try to travel with an objective of taking a photograph and updating your social media. That's all important and that's fun. I also enjoy it. But remember to carry back lessons and share it with people around you. When I am standing in front of you today and talking about Robben Island and my visit, I am only sharing this with you so that one, I remember why I went there and what I learned, and two, when I am talking to you about it, I am trying to evaluate myself as to how good a leader I am, how good a human being I am, and how am I practicing these things what I learned. So friends, the next time you travel across, but carry back those lessons which can make your life a better life. Thank you very much for watching CSK Speaks. Do share your travel stories with us and I'll be more than happy to bring it to people around and take lessons and incorporate them into my life.